This is Tom and Paula Graves from Light of Christ Radio with a story from the Gospel of Mark.
You're welcome to watch this video simply for the story, or you can use it as the basis of a small group study.
Instructions for the small group study can be found below this video in the Show More section.
Today, we continue our series on the Gospel of Mark with the story of the urgent and inconvenient from Mark 5.
Well, Paula, as we begin our story today, as we look at our context, we see that Jesus has been ministering around the Sea of Galilee.
Right, he had just returned from the opposite side of the sea, a Gentile area, where he drove out many evil spirits from a man there.
And now he's returned to the Jewish side of the lake to Capernaum. Now, in this area, and also all over when Jesus ministers, the Jewish leadership were critical of Jesus.
Right, because Jesus didn't follow all of their extra laws, and they didn't like that, because they considered if you touched someone that was dead or that was bleeding, that you became unclean.
However, Jesus consistently has compassion on all, whether you're clean or unclean.
And this brings us to a story from the Word of God.
Jesus got into the boat and again went back to the other side of the lake, where a large crowd gathered around him on the shore. Then a leader of the local synagogue, whose name was Jairus, arrived. When he saw Jesus, he fell at his feet, pleading fervently with him.
"My little daughter is dying," he said. "Please come, lay your hands on her, heal her so she can live."
Jesus went with him, and all the people followed, crowding around him. A woman in the crowd had suffered for 12 years with constant bleeding. She had suffered a great deal from many doctors, and over the years she had spent everything she had to pay them, but she hadn't gotten no better. In fact, she had gotten worse.
She had heard about Jesus, so she came up behind him through the crowd and touched his robe. For she thought to herself, "If I can just touch his robe, I will be healed." Immediately, the bleeding stopped, and she could feel in her body that she had been healed of her terrible condition.
Jesus realized at once that the healing power had gone out from him, so he turned around in the crowd and asked, "Who touched my robe?"
His disciples said to him, "Look at this crowd pressing around you. How can you ask, 'Who touched me?'"
But he kept on looking around to see who had done it. Then the frightened woman, trembling at the realization of what had happened to her, came and fell at her knees in front of him and told him what she had done. And he said to her, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace. Your suffering is over."
And while he was still speaking to her, messengers arrived from the home of Jairus, the leader of the synagogue. They told him, "Your daughter's dead. There's no use in troubling the teacher now."
But Jesus overheard them and said to Jairus, "Don't be afraid, just have faith." Then Jesus stopped the crowd and wouldn't let anyone go with him except Peter, James, and John, the brother of James.
When they came to the home of the synagogue leader, Jesus saw much commotion and weeping and wailing. He went inside and asked,
"Why all this commotion and weeping? The child isn't dead. She's only asleep."
The crowd laughed at him, but he made them all leave, and he took the girl's father and mother and his 3 disciples into the room where the girl was lying.
Holding her hand, he said to her, "Little girl, get up." And the girl, who was 12 years old, immediately stood up and walked around. They were overwhelmed and totally amazed.
Jesus gave them strict orders not to tell anyone what had happened, and then he told them to give her something to eat. And this is a story from the Word of God.
If you're using this video for a small group application, after you have watched this video, try retelling the story from what you heard.
Then read the text. Discussion questions are below in the Show More section.
May this story help you on your journey of life.
Be blessed.